when in doubt, just start. That's what I always say.
That's
It's been
good
that
motto.
kind of, when in doubt, the show must go on, and the show will go on the air, and that's what we're here to do. Okay, we've got so much to talk about, and it's just been crazy, and I've got some really good stories for you guys. Um, but before we get into good stuff, let's talk soccer. Um,
Everyone loves hearing
no, I'm
that.
just kidding. No, just for a second though, because no, and as a pre-show, I mean, I've become a soccer fan over the last few years, and just because my daughter's heavily involved in high-level soccer now, so and Jillian was a
I got my U.S. soccer shirt on already.
you were a
What?
big time soccer player. Excellent. Hold on, I
I
gotta,
got all my, just in case anyone was wondering, I have all of my gear, all of it.
We were
nice.
wondering. Yeah.
You were one. You know what? This is my problem with the NHL not going to the Olympics because it's the one time where they can actually get really people can get nationalistic about hockey. And
Right.
it may not be huge for the long term, but guess what? No one ever said it would. They never thought it would be for soccer. Part of my problem with the NHL and the Olympics is that
But they will get nationalistic for the World Cup. It's just Americans won't. Everybody else will. Trust me.
No, I think Americans will for the World Cup.
it's not the level. It's not the level of the Olympics.
No, it's not. I mean, nothing. The Olympics is its own thing, right? It's its own, and that there's no question that that's why the players like to go. I mean, the Olympics are when everybody who doesn't usually watch hockey will watch hockey because it's on the Olympics. I mean, that is something that there's no way the World Cup of hockey ratings will be as high, anywhere near as high as the Olympic hockey ratings are. I mean, it's not even close. And what they're doing though, what they're smart about though, and I reported on this, gosh, how many years ago that they were going to do this? Not to feather my cap or anything like that, but just that the U.S. what the NHL did want to do was connect it to an Olympics, and they're doing that. If you haven't read, like they're having this follow the Summer Olympics, the World Cup of Hockey. So even though it's not an Olympic event, there's still that national.
It's close, yeah.
Yeah, there's still that nationalistic thing going on with everybody, where we're rooting for our countries, and
On top of that, I was going to say the U.S. men's national team is also for soccer. They're also in World Cup qualifiers. They have a game on September 6th, so that's going on. So you have a lot to piggyback off of at that time.
Yeah, which is good. That's what you like to see, and I think that's why the World Cup. But tonight's a big game, and a lot of people didn't think the U.S. would get this far. It's
Especially
funny. I was
dropping the first game.
Yeah.
To Colombia.
When I was at Copa, I mean, I was there because, like I said, the hotel we stayed at in San Jose during the finals was literally the hotel that was just media reporters and really, really good-looking soccer players. You can tell the difference. Are you an NHL media person or a soccer player? What do you think? It's like, the soccer players are all like, chiseled from stone, 6'5", soccer players. And then there's me. Hi, hey, I'm not a soccer player. I'm a media person.
Yeah, it's probably not very good for the U.S. men's national team. I don't think anyone's expecting them to win. I'm not gonna lie. I hope they win. That'd be great. But Argentina is ranked #1 in the world.
In the world, right?
Well, I'm not watching if you don't expect them to win. I expect them to win. I don't care.
Well, that's what makes it exciting. That there is a #1 team. They're getting a chance against the #1 team in the world. That's what you want. For them, this is like a no-lose situation. Honestly,
If you're telling me they're going to lose, I'm not watching.
Their chances aren't very great, but I mean, there's always they actually the American Outlaws, the supporters group for U.S. Soccer, tweeted out a picture with Herb Brooks quote where it was like, we may play them 10 times and 9 times they win, and tonight's that one time. Like tonight's it's our game, and there's always a chance. There is, and
but that's it. Now I'll watch. The way you were talking before, I will.
And they played well against Ecuador. They played really well. They played if they play like that, then I'm happy. If they played the same way they played against Ecuador, I'm happy. They played like they cared and like a team. But the problem is that they have 3 players who aren't going to be in because Jones got a red card, and then the yellow card rules. You don't have Wood or Bedoya, so that's rough.
The suspensions are tough. Suspensions are tough in soccer. They are really hardcore, and they happen a lot more often in these major events than they do in other, in hockey. You would never see this many people out of a major game.
No. So it'll be interesting to see. There's always a chance there is, and if the U.S. men's national team, they've played the same way against Ecuador, I think you have a good game. It's always going to be hard. You're playing against the best team in the world with arguably the best player in the world, Messi. So it actually would be interesting to watch because Messi is incredible.
Put it this way. Even if you don't think the U.S. has a prayer, if you get a chance to watch Messi play, it is literally you're getting a chance to watch Gretzky play. Like, he is the guy.
Mike's not going to watch.
No,
That's fine.
Mike obviously
Not everyone will watch.
he left the podcast early today. But the whole thing.
Checked out.
If you get a chance to watch, I mean, if you ever get a chance to see Messi play live, I mean, not many people do. This guy is unbelievable. He is magic, personified. He's the best soccer player I think that's ever played. I mean,
for a lot of hockey fans hockey fans that like hate how soccer players go down quick and fall and flail. Messi is one of the few who, when he goes down, he's actually going down, or like he gets right back up. Like he doesn't.
He's a battler. He battles. He sees the field like Gretzky saw the ice. He's in the place where the ball's going. He's got all those Gretzky characteristics.
When Beckham was playing, and I kept hearing, "Oh, he could be like Pele." All of a sudden he joined the MLS and he could never stay healthy, right? So then I said, you know what? He's not Pele, because at the end of his career he couldn't hold on. Now, Messi, maybe he is, and I'll watch him, but Pele's the mark. I mean, to me it is anyhow.
Just watch some Messi YouTube videos, Russ. I'm serious. Like, or anybody out there, watch some Messi. Just you will see some goals that just will boggle your mind. Like if you watch regular soccer.
The bench in the first game and got a hat trick. That doesn't happen ever. Like that's amazing.
Sorry, I came back when we were going to talk about real sports.
Okay, Mike.
Or you mean we were talking about the world sport? I mean, sorry, it's just
right.
I don't hate soccer. I just I cannot get into the Copa American or the Euro Cup. Call me when the World Cup is going on. The MLS, give me a break. I'd rather watch highlight.
Well, MLS is not, not the best. This is the one sport where America can't claim to have the greatest league in the world. I mean, we don't have the greatest league in the world. This is like what people in Sweden feel like about hockey. Like they have the Swedish Elite League. That's what the MLS is. The MLS is the Swedish Elite League. It's like that. It's a good league, but it's not anywhere close to the NHL.
Sweden's got very good chocolate.
Right.
Chocolate. Now I want chocolate. Man,
all right, we'll get into the show. I won't even get to talk about my favorite show, which we watched a lot of this weekend with my kids, which is How It's Made, which is like I've always been into How It's Made, but you guys have watched How It's Made. You like that show? It's like, if you get a chance to watch something on TV.
It's a good show.
I was watching how shuttlecocks are made.
Really? Is it interesting at all?
Oh my gosh, and it's crazy. Like, I'm not a badminton player or anything like that. But by the end of this show, I found myself looking on Amazon just to see how much these cost. Because it was just like one of these things. Like, holy cow, it's so interesting. These are real, actual feathers. That they check each one individually, each feather of this. I mean, it's crazy. Like high level stuff.
I no longer feel bad about spraining my ankle playing badminton.
You shouldn't. It's a normal. I mean, in other countries like China, it's a major sport. So there are people who really do.
That was deserved, Russ. That was deserved.
No, it's not.
I will say this though, Ek. The one thing you don't want to show on that How's It Made is olive loaf. When I used to work at a deli, slicing olive loaf was the grossest thing. And one day I actually looked at the ingredients, and one of the ingredients was beef lips.
What? Oh man.
Ugh.
All right, let's do the show.
Not talking about Mike. Now, isn't talking about soccer better?
Then talking about beef lips? Yeah. That was about saying.
Here comes the train. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday? Wednesday? Sorry. It's Tuesday. I was right the first time. Here we go. One more time. Sorry. Jeez, I don't know what day it is. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, June 21st, 2016.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Jillian Fisher.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday, and this week is no exception, of course, because we are really excited about. I mean, right now, this week and next week and the week after that, we're in the middle of 3 weeks that are crazy for the hockey rumor world, and really fun stuff's going on. And I'm back to you get in your mode of like, okay, I gotta remember to eat. Like I gotta remember to have food. I haven't had breakfast or lunch today, and I just realized that like when I started the show. But it's constantly working and constantly.
This vanilla shake here. Don't mind.
You guys are all like college students, living off of
That's
fast
what happens
food.
this time of year. You do feel it is very reminiscent of the finals in college for me. Like it's like I've got a big box of Cheez-Its under the table. Like,
Pulling an all-nighter.
I shouldn't have that there, but that's under my desk. A big box of Cheez-Its. Yeah, it's all-nighters and it's crazy. And last night I was up really long and a long time, and I just showered before the show, so that's why I look horrible. But everything's going to be good. We're going to get into this. I want to start with Jimmy VC, of course, who is now I've done a lot of research on Jimmy VC. I'm going to give you my scenario as to how I think this whole thing broke down, because I've done a ton of I've talked to so many people going back to Nashville. Now remember that. So Jimmy Vesey. One thing you have to remember whenever you're trying to get down to a rumor, okay, and what's happening really at the bottom of all this is agendas, right? And what everybody's agenda is, and that's so always start at the agendas, okay? There are many agendas at work here. You had Nashville's agenda. You know, they liked Vesey. They wanted to bring him in. They helped him. They felt a lot in dealing with Team USA. They felt like they gave him some, because David Poyle's connected in there. They really felt like Vesey did string them along, and whether or not he didn't know what he was going to do or not, we'll never know. Whether he just but the speculation was he was never going to sign there always, and he didn't sign there, right? So that is what it is. But he gave them the impression, and for whatever, one thing I will say about this whole situation is I think Jimmy Vesey is, one, extremely intelligent. I think he's a very intelligent guy, and obviously he went through Harvard, got his degree in 4 years. You don't get a degree out of Harvard. They don't let you slide for your hockey practices at Harvard. It's not that kind of college. I mean, I know people have gone there. You got to really go through college.
Oh, he was a very bright student. He really goes to classes.
Yeah, he's the real deal, right? And so remember, Vesey is very intelligent. Also, Vesey is very good at politicalness. He's very good at not manipulating situations, but at not giving up information until he has to type of situations. Like he was very good with the Predators as far as this is what I'm not ruling you out, I'm not ruling you out, I'm not ruling it out, I'm not ruling out Nashville. I heard that many times, right? So his rights get traded yesterday to the Buffalo Sabres, and of course remember the other players that factor here are his dad works for the Maple Leafs, his mom and his friends are in Boston, and the whole time I've been hearing that he was going to go to Boston, and I've said that many times. His friends were saying he was going to go to Boston. I know people that he's connected to, because the Boston hockey world is a pretty small place, and I know people in that world. I'm sure you do too, Russ. It's just like it's one of those things. So it sounded like he was going to go to Boston. He was telling people he was going to go to Boston. Whether or not he really wanted to go to Boston or not, he felt like he had to tell people he wanted to go to Boston because of his mom or whatever. There's things that I don't know, but his mom yesterday was very, apparently from all the reports, not happy about this signing and trade to Buffalo. The whole time, though, Vesey's agenda is what? It's to play in a top six role. Be a top guy, play with a team that he likes, that he wants to play with, and now we've learned another part of his agenda, and that I do firmly believe is to play with Jack Eichel. And I think what's going on here, and you can't shake your head at this, Mike. Come on, give me a chance here. This is what I mean, there are people that remember that what Vesey did. This is a kid who would carpool 5 days a week to hockey camp with Jack Eichel. This is a guy who, this is a good. You're not talking about a small relationship. These guys are really best of friends. This is a really tight relationship. They went through a lot together in hockey growing in USA and everything like that. And there are people that now that when you talk to about it that say Vesey did, a couple people were like actually giving him credit, did a great job at manipulating the situation to get himself traded to Buffalo, that Vesey is behind the Buffalo trade 100%. And I talk to people in Nashville, I believe this is true. This is where he wanted to go. Now, does that mean he signs there? It's not 100%. But I think part of this you have to take into account, and I'll finish my little tirade after this. This is a smart kid who at his age and with his education doesn't necessarily want to do what his parents want him to do. He wants to do what he wants to do, and you have to remember that. Like, his dad might want to play in Toronto, his mom might want to play in Boston, he just might want to play with his friend in Buffalo, and that has to be taken into account. And what I think too many people are looking at all these other things, and all these people saying, oh, he wants to play in Boston, he wants to play in Toronto. At the end of the day, this is a Harvard graduate. Okay, we're not talking about a 19-year-old kid coming at it. We're talking about a really sharp kid who really wants to do what he wants to do. And maybe, just maybe, we've heard so much about his parents, and I don't mean to disparage his parents at all, but we've heard so much about his parents along the way that maybe he doesn't want to be around them. Maybe he wants to work someplace else.
Honestly, you might be onto something with that one.
But the thing is, if that is true,
okay,
why the hell did his agent come out yesterday and say nothing has changed? If it's if he
still in negotiation, Mike. It's like I said, still in negotiation.
There's nothing to negotiate, Ak. That's the thing.
There is something.
That's the thing.
We talked about this earlier, but go ahead.
But he's locked into an entry-level contract. The only thing that can be negotiated is the bonus level. And any hockey executive with any IQ out there is going to give him the top level bonuses. So there's nothing to negotiate. Everything is in VC and his agents' control. They can go where they want to go.
No,
they
but
want to go.
Yes, you're right, Mike. But the one other fact you have to remember, and this is often a misconception. I didn't even bring this up in our conversation earlier, but I talked to somebody because I bounced off what you said with somebody. I said, yeah, this exactly what you just said. Entry-level contracts. Yes and no, because yes, the money's the same. But remember what happens after that entry-level contract is you're an RFA with that town, okay? You're an RFA in that city.
Sure.
And if you're an RFA in Buffalo, Toronto, or Boston, we already know that Toronto has just signed Anderson. We know Toronto is going after Stamkos. We know Toronto is going to have a lot of money. There might be more money left in Buffalo in 3 years than there's left in Toronto or Boston. It's just a fact. You have to realize it's not just an entry-level contract. They own you for 7 years. You're going to be there for 7 years.
It may be an arguable point, but if you look at the cap management situation between Buffalo and Toronto, I'm not including Boston because Boston has cleared out some of their bad cap situation and they're not bad off financially right now after years of being bad off.
Right.
Toronto is in a better position than Buffalo for a couple of reasons. One, Toronto doesn't have Matt Molson locked up for 3 or 4 more years. They don't have Zach Bogosian locked up for 3 or 4 more years. Evander Kane's contract, they've got a lot of money that is, I think, it's not, the players are not earning their way. They have to sign Ristolainen this summer to a long-term deal. It's not going to be a bridge deal because defensemen you got to lock up long-term, and then they have Eichel, and then they have Reinhart to sign. Whereas the Leafs, they clear $16 million in cap space next year with Greening, Mahalik, Brooks Lake, Bernier, and Hunwick. So I don't think that's a factor. In the end, and you may very well be right that he wants to go play where he wants to play. He wants to play with his buddy Eichel. He doesn't want to alienate both parents. I mean, he would alienate both parents based on your premise by going to Buffalo instead of going one or the other.
That might be easier than alienating one. You know what I mean? Like it might be the case.
Maybe not. But the thing that cannot be forgotten here is that if he was going to go to Buffalo, I think it would have been a quick decision because there's nothing more to negotiate. This whole, Terry Pagula, Tim Murray, Dan Bilesma, and Jack Eichel are going to, they'll bring him to town and woo him. It wouldn't be necessary to woo him if there was a guarantee he was coming to Buffalo. So I just think Buffalo did the right thing. They had 4 third-round picks. They traded one of them to get the rights to talk to Jimmy Vesey. They've got 9 days to work on him. After July 1st, he's a free guy. You can't sign him until August 15th. So they've got 9 days to work on him. I don't know whether it's going to happen. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Here's the way I think. I've been told a lot of things. Look, Vesey is close to his family, no doubt.
Yeah.
Definitely close to his mother, no doubt.
Yeah.
Definitely trained with Jack Eichel and is great friends with him, no question. At the end of the day, though, I don't think he'll be signed by July 1st by these guys. I really just think he is there to look over the situation. Agent has both players. The agent probably said to Buffalo, hey, he's interested. Why don't you have him take a look? He'll take a look. It helps with that agent and whatever players he has down the road with Buffalo because this is some goodwill.
Right.
But unless he signs like tomorrow, I don't think he's signing. And so I just think he is just exploring for the sake of exploring, and then we'll decide on still Boston or Toronto. I really don't think he'll be in Buffalo. I also think Buffalo is just shooting for the moon for everybody. We're going to be in on Stamkos. We're going to be in on VC.
Well, that's true.
We're going to be in on everybody because we have cap space. And that's what I think Terry Pagula told Murray to do, so he's going to do it.
And the question is this. I mean, and one last thing on VC. I agree that he's not going to get signed before July 1st. I do agree with that. And I think that he's still going to be a free agent. But also, the other thing to remember here is he's doing Nashville a bit of a favor here. But this is a bit. I mean, he was with Nashville for a very long time. They spent a lot of money and time and energy on this guy, So by his rights getting moved now, I think part of it was a little bit of a hat tip to say, listen, just move my rights to Buffalo. Mm-hmm. They're a possibility. It's not Boston. It's not Toronto. So there's not the pressure of move the rights and you got to sign right away. It's Buffalo. Move them to Buffalo. Nashville gets a 3rd-round pick out of it. They get something for it, which is.
Go ahead.
Good, Joe.
Go ahead,
I
Joe.
was just gonna say I am kind of also like this. He's got to be careful because he's kind of making it seem like he's like almost like a spoiled kid who went to Harvard. That's how it's coming across. Like I'm not saying that's what it is, but man, you have the first one is you feel like he maybe didn't tell the whole truth about Nashville. You feel like maybe he's not telling the truth now. It's kind of like, come on, what is your end game here? Because it's not looking the best at this point. Like I just think.
Well, I think his end game is to play where he wants to play, and the system allows him to do that. So I have no problem. If he wants to play in Boston, he can play in Boston. If he wants to play in Buffalo, he can sign there before July 1st. If he wants to play in Toronto, he's got to wait till August 15th. I think that the only thing that the trade does it cleanses any potential of a tampering charge when it comes to Nashville, because now that they've gotten a third-round pick, they have no case for tampering. The only thing that would have happened is if Buffalo 2 minutes after trading for him had signed him, then that would have been a clear illustration of tampering, because there's no way they could reach a contract agreement in 2 minutes.
Unless it's 4 minutes like Frederick Anderson. But yep, I agree with you.
Sorry.
Frederick Anderson was 4 minutes after they traded for him, but yeah.
I'll talk about that in a second.
What are you saying, Russ?
Set up as the bad guy. Johansson got set up as the bad guy, and the end result, he's doing really well where he is. If the system is set up like this, the bad guys are the NHL and the NHLPA, not the player.
This is not Jonathan Drouin.
So maybe his parents need to stop being so vocal too. That's the other thing. For me, I don't need to hear his mom and dad telling every detail of what they think and what they feel. Not that I understand the parents, it's their child, he's really important to them, they want him to be happy, but come on, man, like it's too much. It's just too much for me.
The hockey world, Jillian, I mean, what Jillian is saying is very much, he's on that edge right now in the hockey world. He has not yet made people think he's a spoiled brat, but he is on that edge, and there's. I
think some people have that opinion that he is.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair, but I do think at this point it's not fair, and I think most people in hockey feel that way at least the internal, like the people within the hockey world. The fans, of course, he's gonna look the way he's gonna look, right? But within the hockey world, I mean, Jonathan Drouin did look that way last year within the hockey world. There was no question that was going on, but this is very different. This is a little bit like Kevin Hayes, to a degree. Where that's another one of, they're another one of these. They're all in the same circle, right? So Hayes is in the same circle.
And Mike Riley last year. See, this is the thing, and I have no problem with this. The CBA has so many aspects that are positive and in favor of the teams, that when a player finds a loophole, and this college situation is a loophole, I have no problem with them taking advantage of it to any length they can. They'll close this loophole with the end of the CBA. This will probably go away. But until it does, I don't blame these players from saying, I'm going to choose where I want to go. And if I want to go to Buffalo, I'll go to Buffalo. And if I want to go to Toronto, I'm going to Toronto.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And this is this, like you say, that when players, it is a weird business, right? Where you get drafted into a place, like if any other thing you specialize in, you get to go pick where you're going to work. Here you don't get to pick where you're going to work. The draft itself, has always felt unconstitutional to me in general, but it is how sports works, right?
Collectively bargained. Yeah.
Right, it's collectively bargained, so therefore it's the laws. But when you think about it, who else? What other jobs in the world work like that? Like you're the best. You're the best engineer out there, so the worst engineering company gets you first. That's how it works.
Until players own teams, this is the way the system is. Like that's the way it's going.
This is the system, and that this is the system. But like I said, it is kind of strange that we reward the worst of something with the best of something, and that's how the system works. And so what he's done is he's sort of, he's played around with that a little bit, and obviously Nashville didn't take. He wasn't the first player taken in the draft. Nashville took him, and they took a chance on him, to a degree, and they waited out, and they really did. They tried to make this work, and I do feel bad for the Predators in this situation. I think they're just a victim of circumstance here. I don't think they did anything wrong. So I think the Predators are just what they are, and VC's a smart kid. So let's move on though to Frederick Anderson, who was signed 4 minutes after he was traded to and it makes you wonder, but. And this is always the fun thing about this kind of stuff. This is how it goes. But Mike, what are your thoughts on it? I think it's a great move.
Well, I mean, first the contract. Apparently, the Leafs had permission from Anaheim to talk to his agent, and the trade was conditional on them getting the contract because he was going to be a UFA after the end of next season. So they didn't want to make a trade for a guy that they were going to potentially lose after 1 year and give up significant draft picks. I think it was a little higher of a cost than I thought it was going to take to get a quality goaltender, especially, and I wrote about this in my blog yesterday, with the market for goalies expected to be flooded in the next 12 months with expansion, where teams are going to be looking to maybe shed a goaltender that they can't protect. I thought that the price for a guy like an Anderson or a guy like a Marc-Andre Fleury would be a little bit less than what the Leafs paid. But there's no doubting, I mean, he's 26 years old, he's a big goaltender, he had 3 pretty good NHL seasons, was their starter for the 1 year, took him to Game 7 of the Western Conference Final in 2015 against the Blackhawks. I think he's a good goaltender. You never know about the pressure of the Toronto market, but I think the thing that puts him above a guy like Bernier, who was a backup in LA for the number of years, or a guy like Vesatoskala back in the day, who was a backup or a 1B in San Jose. Anderson's been exposed to playoff pressure and media scrums, so he should be used to it. He's a very mild-mannered, well-grounded type of guy. He's a big goaltender who can handle a lot of games. So I think that is a plus. And I do think it signals, as you said in your blog, not that the rebuild is being abandoned, but there is going to be an impetus here with Mike Babcock, and I've said this before. Babcock at the end of last year, you could see the frustration. They finished in 30th place. They didn't have a lot to work with. You knew that they were going to give him more pieces to work with, and he had no confidence in Jonathan Bernier. I think Jonathan Bernier could get bought out, maybe traded, and if not, either one of those will be a $4 million backup. But Freddie Anderson's going to be the number 1 goalie, and I think this is the start of many moves for the Leafs.
It's funny. Yeah, no, it is a start.
I won that trade personally. I think that was.
Yeah.
I know, Mike. You said maybe thought they paid a little too much of a price for it, but I still think that the Leafs, if I had to pick which side I'd want to be on, I'd want to be on the Leafs side in this one.
Yeah, they target. Lou Lamoriello even says the goaltender was the main reason. The price was secondary.
Yeah, and this is smart. This is a smart move, and this is not going to affect their ability to sign Stamkos in a negative way in any way, shape, or form. Like I wrote, I mean, you have to pay a goaltender. You have to, you have a goaltender. You got to pay a goaltender. What this does, though, is it gives them a little bit more ammo to get Stamkos because, like I said in the blog as well, and I really can't state this enough. I was even thinking about trying to get some players on to talk about this. Some of the UFAs that I've talked to over the years. One of the big things they always say to me is, I'm not going to sign for a place that has goaltending issues. That's a big thing. Like if you go to a city that has goaltending issues, because at the end of the day, no matter how good the team is, if the goalie is not holding up, it's a problem. So they went and they got something that it's an unknown, but it's a better unknown. It's like, okay, Anderson, we haven't seen him play a year, and ideally, I'm sure Stamkos would like to see him play a year and to see how he's actually going to be taking on the number 1 job in that market and all that stuff, and playing with a different kind of team in front of him. But I always thought this is where I kind of give Anderson a nod and give them a nod finding this guy, because I've always seen Anderson as a better goalie with more shots on him than one of those than Gibson, who seems to be a really solid goalie when the team's playing solid in front of him. And I've always thought of goalies in those 2 categories, and there's some goalies that are terrible when they don't get a lot of shots, and Anderson had that issue at times. I felt like that if he didn't get a lot of shots, he had problems. So I think he's going to get plenty of shots in Toronto over the next year or 2, and it's going to be a good fit. And he's going to, as that team develops, what they're going to become, who knows? They're going to be an offensive team. I mean, the whole league. I think the whole league is moving towards offense. I've been working on a couple blogs about that over the summer, where I think we could be heading towards I'm not going to say we're going to have 200-point players again, but we could have seriously more players who get more offense. It's all about offense right now. I think that's where it's heading.
I think with this deal, a couple things happened. I think because the Leafs had to give up a first-round pick, we've now gone through this moment in the press. Well, it's 30th overall. Is that really a first-round pick? It's like, stop. You know, that's nonsense too, because now all of a sudden there are some people in Toronto that are trying to devalue what a 30th overall pick is. So they are. No, they are. They're trying to rename it. Like, they're like, well, it's not really a first-round pick. And they have the 31st pick. So I'm like, who cares?
It's still a first-round pick.
They are doing that, Mike. I mean, I've heard.
I've heard that.
I mean, that's idiocy. It is a first-round pick, or they could say it's the highest second-round pick. No, it's in the first round.
Right. But I'm just saying that's going on. I like Anderson, but I don't think he's elite, and I don't think they paid elite money. So I think they got what they paid for. And they're going to have a certain amount of defense in front of him, or he's not going to give them the results that they want. There's no question about that.
Well, the one thing that you can say about the Leafs, in spite of the fact that they finished dead last year, was that they played a much better defensive game. Their problem last year was they couldn't score if the net was the size of Lake Erie. So, I mean, I think that and that is going to change with the potential addition of Stamkos if they win this whole thing that happens with Matthews and Marner and Nylander and everything, all the young players that they have, they should be able to score more goals. I mean, defensively, in terms of bodies, I think they need to add a defenseman or two. But I think Anderson is a good to very good goaltender. As long as he's consistent and stable, that'll put him.
The other big thing with him is the consistency. Now he is the known number one again. Right. Let's see what his consistency level is going to be like, because that's the big test for him.
Yeah. As long as he's consistent, they're fine.
Yeah. I want to touch on a rumor that's out there that's pretty interesting, and that is that the Lightning are trying to trade Bishop to the Calgary Flames, right? And this has been going on today, and it was going on last night too, so I'm not surprised it got out there. But this may be one of the cases where this is a rumor among GMs that's gone taller down the line. I don't know that this is the case. I think the Lightning's plans are to do what we talked about yesterday, which is just ride Bishop out next year with the two goalies and then move him, or move him at the trade deadline perhaps. But I think in all likelihood, just let him run out his contract and get something for him, like the rights or a third-round draft pick or whatever. And I know it seems ridiculous, but it really. What was that, Mike?
No, I was going to say Pierre LeBrun reported yesterday that Calgary was in on the Anderson talks. And that Bob Murray didn't want to trade Anderson within the division, so that was a factor. And now, obviously, if Calgary would have overpaid, they would have taken that offer. But it wasn't.
Look, they're doing due diligence on everybody, but I think X right. I think they're going to have to be bowled over on a deal to trade him, because I think at this point, I think Steve Yzerman knows Stamkos isn't signing, because when he comes out and says, "Well, I can't make him sign a contract," then I think you know what the score is. We know what the number is. The number's been out there. Now it's just a matter of, is he signing the number or not? And it looks like he's not, right? So
and I'll say this, and I like I said, I think Vasilevsky is a great prospect. I think he is going to be a very good NHL goaltender, but there were holes in his game that were shown in the playoffs that, if that team, and they can compete, they can contend without Stamkos next year, but I think they would have to have Bishop as their goalie to be able to. I'm not so sure they would be able to contend. It would be a bigger question mark if it's Vasilevsky as the number one with Lefskis as the number two.
I differ. I think the holes were on the defense. I saw the games where Vasilevsky was saving 45, that there's no way Bishop could have done that, and especially being a little nicked up, which he usually is. So I think there were some games that Vasilevsky literally held them in there, and Bishop couldn't have won them. I think he's just a young goalie that is just progressing at the rate that I thought he would progress at, which is a high rate, but it still takes a little time. Right. I think he definitely can win with them, but I think their defense has to get better. Their defense is still close to awful, Tampa. I mean, it really is. I mean, there are times when, when Suster's out there, well, it's not, you don't have a big enough water jug there, Jillian. I just want to say, you need to get a bigger one. I just think there are times out there where their defense is suspect, especially if you get to that third pairing really bad. So I think that's a kryptonite for a young goalie. I think Bishop handles that better because he's a veteran and he's been around longer. I think that's really all it's a matter of.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Bruins a little bit too. The Bruins are, they definitely are not looking like the favorites in the VC thing as of now, but that could change. But they are definitely out there trying to get a defenseman.
Well, I mean, and then we had speculated, or a lot of people had speculated about the Yandle situation, and Yandle gets moved to Florida yesterday. Now, I mean, I don't know, Russ. I just wanted to ask you. I mean, they paid such a low price. It's almost like Florida knows they really don't have a really great chance of signing him. I mean, is that?
I think that's what it is. I think Florida's like, we're going to offer you something here, and we're going to tell you what we're about, and we hope you're going to sign with us before you go run into Boston. I really think that's what it's about. I do.
I don't know. I mean,
well, because here's the thing. If they give
I think it's
Yandle
better than
what he's
50-50. Go ahead.
If they give Yandle what he's looking for, then unless Campbell comes in at some sort of ridiculous minimum contract, he's gone.
Well, I think they're willing to do that. I think they're willing to lose Campbell. I don't think that's the issue.
Okay.
I mean, I think that Campbell could have been gone anyway. I think that there was a definite. I mean, as much as they like Campbell, there's a new vision sort of going on there in Florida over the summer, and it's definitely changing things. I think that Campbell could have been gone anyway. I think it's better than 50-50. I would say like 60 or 70% that they sign Yandle. I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk, and I don't, I think there's still a sales pitch. I think I know they're going to have Yandle down there and talk to him and show him around and show him, how nice it is to live in Miami or that area. But I think, and I'm talking to a couple GMs, they really do believe that Yandle is getting signed in Florida. Like that is definitely the talk around the league is that they're going to get it done. That they've heard that they're going to get it done. Now, I don't think that that's a definite, but I think that it's a better than 50-50 chance.
Well, wouldn't it be ironic that they cleared the $4 million salary of Mark Savard to maybe have a chance to sign Yandle, the money that they got from Boston last year? And Boston has aspirations of signing Yandle. It's ironic that the Savard contract, clearing that off the books would have been part of what made Yandle possible.
I've started to question how much Boston really wants to sign Yandle. Sorry, I've really started to question how much Boston really wants to sign Yandle over the last couple of weeks. Just because there was a definite feeling like, okay, it makes sense, he's from there, all this stuff, but they've had chances. They could have traded for his rights.
They're not going to run to him. Like, again, there's this arrogance about Boston that it's like, well, you want to play for us, we know that, so we'll let you sort of test the market and see around, and then you'll come back to us. Like, I think that's how they're handling it, and I think
that's a little bit true.
You gotta be careful with that line of thinking. You really do.
You do.
No, for sure, but I do think that. I mean, I can tell you this, that I heard last night from really good sources that they made a mega offer for Shea Weber last night. The Bruins did. That they tried really hard to put this deal together, and the Predators said, nope, we're just not into that at all. Which is, like I've said all along, I just don't see the Predators trading Shea Weber for anything.
Okay, and Ak, I've always battled you on the Shea Weber. Should they trade? Should they not trade? After trading Seth Jones, if all of a sudden they traded Shea Weber, David Poile should be fired the very minute that they do it. Because the only way that trading Seth Jones made sense was to keep Weber around along with Yossi and have that super strong defense that they have. If in the span of a year they trade their best young defenseman and then their best defenseman, that would be just idiotic.
Right. Yeah, I think so too. And I think that, I mean, they really like where they are. They want to keep their defense intact. They like the defensive core they have at this point, and they're going to go that way now.
That's what they did. They listened to a big offer.
They listened to a big offer. I also heard that there was a big offer made for Trouba as well in Winnipeg. So Boston was very aggressive yesterday, trying to make a huge splash and pick up their big defenseman. And through that, we kind of learned a little bit more about how much the Cheveldaev actually doesn't want to move Trouba. Because I
told you, this is one guy. Yeah. I know that I always say GMs say one thing and do another, but this is one guy that has never, ever gone back on anything he said that I can recall since he's been in that position.
Yeah, and what's funny about that is he says very little.
Right.
So when he does say something, you kind of do have to take it. I mean, he's one of the quietest and slyest GMs,
I mean, and we'll have Peter Tessier on the show at some point over the next couple of weeks. But if you look at the Winnipeg situation, I mean, just recently re-signing Byfuglien, Myers is under contract for I think another 3 years. It makes more sense to try to get Trouba locked up on a long-term deal, but maybe they take him on a bridge deal and move Tobias Enstrom. He's got, I think, a couple years left in his contract. He's a veteran guy. He probably could help some team on the blue line. You know that teams can move blue liners right now because the prices are ridiculous. When like a Jason Demers might get over $5 million, you have to exercise every other option before paying that kind of, I would say, over price. So maybe they can move Enstrom, and maybe they can get Trouba signed on a bridge deal or even a long-term deal. That makes more sense for them in the long term.
Yeah, and I think that some of this is, Cheveldaev kind of deftly playing the marketplace he's in, because you have a good young kid coming in, obviously, and probably likely Patrick Laine is going to be there, and that's a nice thing. And then in the past you've had, there were times when, as much as we're hearing that Trouba doesn't want to be there right now, there were times when we heard that and more about Byfuglien not wanting to be there, and yet Byfuglien continues there and signs. So it's a little bit of like waiting them out and seeing, okay, if we can actually, make something happen here, maybe Trouba does want to stay. So we're gonna try to wait this out. He controls them for a while anyway, so it's not a desperate situation for him. He's got a spot, but and apparently, from what I was told, the Bruins' offer was very significant, and that it would be unlikely that they would get a better offer for Trouba. So in all likelihood, Trouba's not going anywhere. That's at least what I've heard to this point. So let's get into. I think Steven Stamkos is going to be an unrestricted free agent next week. So we should talk a little bit about Steven Stamkos, perhaps.
I like Mike's face on that one. That was great.
What was it?
The guy who wears number 91.
I think at 5 o'clock today we're going to hear his rights are traded. That's what I think.
You think today? This is today or tomorrow? I was told was the deadline for that. And could his rights be traded to Buffalo? Let's talk about Buffalo for a second, because that Drager obviously reported the Buffalo Sabres with the should whatever put $12 million on the table per year.
Everybody wants to come to Buffalo. It's the garden spot of the universe.
I say this: they have picks, and they're going to burn these picks and use them as equity in negotiations. But it doesn't mean they're going to give them $12 million.
Right. Yeah, that's the figure. That is the figure that Drager mentioned on TSN Radio this morning.
Right.
$12 million per.
Oh my God. Ooh.
I will go on the record right now that will tell you that Stamkos will sign a deal that will be at least $11 million per.
Yes. Oh, no doubt. He's going to.
$12 million per is not crazy.
It's just when you hear it, sometimes you're like, wow, that's a lot.
If he hits the open market, he's going to be the highest paid player in the NHL. I've been saying that, and other people have been saying that for months. It's not a shock because
so it's $11 million. $12 million is not crazy.
No way. Absolutely. I see no way Tampa pays that much.
Oh, no. Yzerman, there are reports that Yzerman came out yesterday and said that he would not pay more than that $8.5 million figure. He's got to sign too many guys. They just can't do it. So it may be very possible what Russ is saying, that they trade their negotiating rights to Stamkos and at least recoup a second-round pick or something like that, and move on. And then Stamkos, the thing is, his negotiating rights exclusively last until Saturday morning. And then on the draft floor, all you're going to be hearing, it's not going to be talking about second-round picks and third-round picks. It's going to be Stamkos. That's all.
That's the other thing, Eck. Let's be fair and talk about this as sort of like Buffalo trying to outmarket Toronto for this draft. Because that's a real factor here too now. It is. No,
it's always a factor, right? And it's always it's no different than the Flyers and the Rangers and what we've seen in Montreal and Toronto over the years. I mean, this is the same thing. That this definitely exists. But what I do get a little bit crazy about is, we saw what happened with Babcock, right? And there's no question that Buffalo drove the price up on Babcock.
Well, I think that Babcock strategically used Buffalo as a plausible destination. Where things got a little pissy was that he essentially, I don't know if he told Buffalo he was going there, but there were some people in Buffalo that thought he was going there, and then all of a sudden there was an about face and he was signing with the Leafs. And don't put it, and I don't blame Buffalo if they're doing this, but don't put it past Buffalo to try to mess with the program, because everything is like they're going to draft Austin Matthews, they're going to Jimmy Vesey, they're going to get Stamkos. Boom, boom, boom. Well, okay, Buffalo's going to try to throw a wrench into that. Does that mean that in the end they're going to get Vesey or Stamkos?
We don't know.
Probably not. Probably not.
Probably not, but we don't know. We just honestly, I can't say enough that this just comes down to where Stamkos wants to play, right? It's really, it's just really not going to be about the money. As if VC's not about the money either in some ways, like you're saying, but I mean, I do think that VC's more about the money because of the fact that he's stuck to that team for 7 years, whereas Stamkos he wants to play where he wants to play.
Right. But you have to admit, the circumstantial evidence about where he wants to play has never been, I want to live in Cheektowaga. It's been, I want to go back to the team that I rooted for as a 5-year-old.
Yes.
So, now that's not to say that Toronto can offer him $1.5 million and he's going to go there because it's been his lifelong goal to be a Maple Leaf. He wants to.
And I think Toronto will be comparable with whatever Buffalo puts on the table. I don't think it's going to. I think that's going to.
You got to match up food, transportation, executive washroom. You have to match up every perk. Otherwise, he might go for one of those other perks. Like I don't know what Buffalo has that Toronto doesn't, but they're going to make up some
chicken wings. They have chicken wings.
That's right. The Anchor Bar.
Buffalo has an equally, I would say, and it's not Toronto, but it's as close as a Canadian city as you can get, and more crazy than.
Is that the marketing plan for Buffalo? If you were the mayor of Buffalo, would you say we're not Toronto, but is that like the marketing plan?
Well, I'm saying as far as as far as hockey fans go, I think Buffalo. A lot of the Canadian cities like Montreal and Toronto just blow everybody out of the water. Edmonton does the same, but then after that, Buffalo is right there with any of those other cities.
This is what the Sabres have to offer. This week, you saw a photo of Rex Ryan, the Bills coach, and his brother Rob riding a double bicycle through Delaware Park. Well, they bought a triple bicycle, and they're going to offer Steven Stamkos the third seat.
I mean, that's a pretty nice offer. I don't know. Toronto cannot match that. That's for sure. They can't.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. Rex Ryan will ride a bike in Toronto with Stamkos, too. He's a Leafs fan. So he's just...
yeah, but he's a Leafs fan, but of course when he got hired as the Bills head coach and he's making $8 million a year, oh, no, I'm a Sabres fan now. Yeah, sure, Rex.
Well, remember also that Pegula is... Pegula's been laying in waiting for a while, to do anything. He hasn't done anything crazy since Ville Leno, in a way. He sort of has kept his...
well, no, Matt Molson was dumb money, too. I mean, let's be real.
First year off.
Yeah, but they're not. Not really crazy. So, I mean, this. I do think Pegula. I know Pegula's passion for this is off the charts.
Oh, he's got great passion. There's no doubt.
He's gonna be involved in it. There's no reason not to be involved in it. So he's gonna be involved in it for sure.
Yeah, let me just say this. I mean, being in Buffalo and seeing what the Pegulas have done down on the waterfront, the Harbor Center that people will see for the draft is fantastic. There's a lot of urban renewal down there, the canal inlet, and a lot of buildings and a lot of hotels and everything being built down there. They're trying to get this franchise going, after years of Tom Golisano owning it, and I think bad management from Darcy Regier. You've got Tim Murray, who I think is a pretty decent general manager, and I like Dan Bilesman as a coach. I mean, there is an upward mobility here with this organization. It's just a question of whether shooting too high and spending $12 million on Steven Stamkos is the best thing for the long-term goal of the franchise.
But I think that question is no different. In Buffalo than it is in Toronto. I mean, I think that when you're talking about $12 million for any player, you're talking about that. I mean, it's like I personally don't think Stamkos is worth $12 million. I really don't. I think he's. Is he better than Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves? No, I don't think he is. I mean, I'd take either of them over Stamkos.
I think he's worth it for that market. I think this is the thing. It would be one thing if you had to trade Mitch Marner or Morgan Riley in a deal to get Steven Stamkos. The only thing that you're paying is cap space, and the Maple Leafs have been able to manipulate the cap pretty well over the last couple of years. There are some people in Toronto that thought that the trade for Frederik Andersen and signing for $5 million all of a sudden meant the Leafs couldn't spend money on Stamkos. Well, you can go 10% over the cap. You've got $8 million in salary that's going to go on long-term injury at the beginning of next year. They have plenty of room, and they have $16 million in salaries dropping off the cap at the end of next year. They've got plenty of money, and they've
got plenty of money, but they're going to have to spend that money to put a winning team around Stamkos. They're going to. It's not that. Then they're going to. It's going to be how they spend it. Really, I mean, at the end of the day, one GM said to me yesterday, and I really do buy this, that at the end of the day, the way you spend on your third and fourth liners determines how successful you are, and that's honestly the truth. Because when you look at these teams, it's the teams that have third and fourth liners. Some on entry level contracts, some are bargains. That's where you can make it up. That's where this all works. So that's why Edmonton has not had any success, right?
Right. And let's go around the panel for this one. Sure. Who is going to win the Cup first between Toronto and Buffalo? Obviously, Buffalo doesn't have the same kind of drought that Toronto has because they just couldn't, because they're just not as old. But it's close. And so I'll go to Mike first. Who is going to win the Cup first, the Leafs or the Sabres?
So wait, and just the team. That's all we're naming.
One that they win, like whoever does it first.
How am I supposed to answer that? My God.
All right, Mike has to disdain because let's do the three of us because disdain is not the right word, but that's kind of what I meant.
Yeah, me go first. I have to be the jerk.
Yeah, Joe.
Okay, I'm fine in that role. I'm gonna say Toronto. I'm gonna go and say Toronto will win it first.
Okay, I'm gonna say Toronto.
I'll say Toronto too.
Oh, Mike, did we just make the? Oh my gosh! Listen, now, Mike, would you have put a wrench in all three of us agreeing on something?
Well, I can't. I cover the Leafs, so I can't be.
No, to me, but I don't think. I mean, as of now, yes, that's what I mean, and I love what the Leafs have put into play. I mean, you can't beat the front office that they have. You can't beat what they've got going on.
I'm taking it all into account. I'm even taking into account what Buffalo may acquire. I'm doing all of that.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, because there's so many factors involved in this. But when you look at, the potential is definitely in Toronto, no question about it. Over most teams. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, and there aren't many teams that can brag that Shanahan. They can't brag Shanahan and Babcock and Lamoriello and then having these great young players that they've got coming in, and then possibly getting Stamkos. I mean, but to me this is the bigger question. The bigger question is this. If Stamkos signs for $12 million in Toronto, okay, let's just say he does, because I think it could be that much.
I don't think it'll be that much, but okay.
Let's say $11 million or whatever we want to say.
12 or $11 million. I know it is. It does make a big difference, but when you say it like that.
What are the expectations placed on Stamkos in Toronto? Like, what would the Maple Leafs fans be okay with for a guy who signs a 7-year, 12 per deal? What do you have to do to say you're a success?
To eventually lead the team to a Stanley Cup.
Like at least one Stanley Cup?
And what is there a time frame on that, by the way?
I mean, I would say within 3 to 4 years. While he's in his
4 years, you win a Stanley Cup, right? So, and I think also, this is Toronto. These fans aren't idiots. He's got to be a major contributor to that. I mean, this team could win the Stanley Cup without him still in 3 or 4 years. I mean, they've got good young players coming up. So let's.
If Stamkos signs in Toronto,
30 goals a year.
30 to 35. I mean, if Stamkos signs in Toronto, he's immediately the number 1 center. He moves Austin Matthews down to the number 2 center. He takes pressure off of Austin Matthews.
Is that good?
They're able to possibly trade either Bozak or Nazem Kadri to address other areas of need. Now, the thing is, within 2 or 3 years, if Matthews is a success, he probably ends up being the number 1 center, and then Stamkos becomes the number 2, or maybe even moves to the wing. But I mean, I think right now what he does is he brings immediate credibility to an organization that has been an embarrassment for a number of years.
I think they've already gotten the credibility. I think they've. Go ahead, Tress, sorry.
What you're driving at, Eck, is Phil Kessel scored a fair amount of goals in Toronto, and at the end of it, he was a bum. And so what's going to prevent Steven Stamkos from being a bum if they somehow don't win the Cup because one guy doesn't win the Cup for you?
Because Steven Stamkos and Phil Kessel are night and day. They're not the same player. Phil Kessel is a great complementary player, but he does not want any kind of leadership stake in any team. He just wants to come in, score goals, and go out and fish at night in the summer. That's all he wants to do.
And also, you have to admit the fact that that Kessel won a Stanley Cup and Stamkos didn't. So they're definitely not the same player.
Oh.
But
Man.
But
dig there.
But Steven Stamkos, he comes in there and he wins a Stanley Cup. They're renaming Yonge Street Stamkos Avenue.
Oh, you stop it!
Story.
Come on.
That's a little bit much, though.
That's
it's
a little bit much.
It's a great story because he's a local kid, and because he's the top pick overall in the draft the year he came out, and because this just makes up for not tanking to get him. And there's a lot of things that are good here, but and I'm not putting this on Toronto. I'm putting this on any team. Like I'm saying, what is expected of a $12 million a year player? This is.
What Mike said is right. If any team paying that much, you better hope that your team's winning a cup in 3 to 4 years.
You have to win a cup, but you also have to do.
You compared that money to Kane and Taves, and what have they done? They helped their team win Stanley Cup.
Right.
I think that's the absolute expectation.
Taves and Keith, and they had a lot of other pieces.
Yes, and you need a team around him. Obviously, and I think you need a deep team.
And they won 2 Stanley Cups already. So Kane and Taves are already in a great spot. And their contract was signed after they won 1 Stanley Cup, or maybe even 2, right?
I don't think that the expectations in Toronto, if they sign Stamkos, are going to be grandiose from the very beginning. I mean, they could very easily miss the playoffs next year with Stamkos.
Right, what if they miss the playoffs next year with Stamkos, and Stamkos scores 20 goals and blows out his, or not get hurt, but say he plays an entire year? No, I'm just saying this is what's going on. I'm telling you, this is what's going on in Stamkos' head through his sole decision. That's why I'm bringing this up. This is the kind of stuff that he's got to be thinking of. He knows this market better than I know the market. He knows the market like you know the market. Right. He knows what it's all about. The reason I'm asking these questions is, I don't know. To me, Toronto fans have always been a bit of an enigma, and they're awesome. They're awesome fans. They're incredible fans. But the Canadian and Leaf fans are so passionate about what they do that they're not patient fans, and they're not, and that's okay.
They're not patient fans, but you'll use the example of somebody who doesn't exactly compare to Steven Stamkos. When they signed David Clarkson,
right,
$5.25 million, he was the favorite. Wendell Clarkson on the front page of the Toronto Sun. The favorite son returns for the Mimico boy coming back to help the franchise. Okay, there was one problem. David Clarkson couldn't perform, didn't perform, got hurt a couple times, got suspended right off the bat. It was a comedy of errors. But the thing is, in the end, he wasn't worth the money that they paid for him, and the expectations put on him were too much for him. And ever since he signed that contract, even in Columbus, he has barely played. So they signed a guy who just couldn't fulfill the expectation and the responsibility of the contract that he signed. Stamkos is a star player. He's one of the best 5 to 10 players in the league. What the expectation in Toronto is that he's going to be a star player, one of the best 5 to 10 players in the league. If he does that, there's not going to be a problem.
But he's done that on Tampa with a team around him that's much higher skilled.
There wasn't a team around him back in 2009.
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, they won the Stanley Cup. I mean, there was still a lot of pieces. He was always playing with skilled guys. He was playing with Vinny. He was playing with St. Louis. He always had guys. There's no LeCavier. There's no St. Louis on this team. Austin Matthews, Marner, they might really be those players, but I think they are far more important than Steven Stamkos to the Maple Leafs' future. Marner and Matthews, if you could say you could only take 2 of Marner, Matthews, or Stamkos, I would definitely take Marner and Matthews and leave Stamkos.
Well, of course, because you're going to have Marner and Matthews and Nylander for 6 or 7 years, and they can't go anywhere because they're tied to the Leafs. Stamkos is.
No, just for winning, not even tied, just for winning.
I think they're equally. Stamkos enables the pressure to be taken off of Austin Matthews. If Austin Matthews is there and he's the number 1 guy, it's Austin 24/7, 365.
Yeah. With
Stamkos, that pressure will be alleviated a great deal.
Yep.
I agree with that. Yeah. That to me is the number 1 reason you would sign Stamkos, and because I do think that the pressure on Matthews is going to be unbelievable, and this will definitely take away from that. This will definitely distract from that. The pressure will be shifted to Stamkos, and Matthews will have pressure on him, but people will be patient with Matthews, where they might not have been as patient with Matthews if Stamkos isn't there. I think that's 100% true. And that is something that we don't know whether Stamkos is willing to make, to bite that bullet or not, right? But I think.
Well, he knows as soon as he signs that contract, he's the man. He's more than likely, if he signs that contract, going to be named the team captain as well as the highest paid player on that team. They don't have a captain. They traded their captain. Yeah. If you're paying a guy $11 million, he's and he has the leadership abilities of Steven Stamkos, you're going to be the team captain. So I think he would be going into any situation, Detroit, Buffalo, Toronto, with his eyes wide open.
Yeah, he'd have to, and I think that it's gonna be fascinating. That's all I can say. We have a fascinating couple of weeks ahead of us because his rights being traded, like you said, that doesn't mean a ton. If his rights aren't traded, that means something, that also doesn't mean that he's going to sign back in Tampa if his rights aren't traded. But if his rights aren't traded, to me, like I said yesterday, his rights could be traded. He can still sign in Tampa. But I'm not as fully into the concept that we're talking about here, where Tampa can't go over 8.5. I know that people reported that yesterday. I've heard various things about that. I talked to a lot of really important people about that, and that's a stance right now. But it's not. I mean, remember, Jeff Vinnick in Tampa loves Steven Stamkos. The owner loves. So if it's if it's losing him or not, if Stamkos says, "Listen, I'll take 10 to stay there because of the taxes, because I love the situation." If they get to 10, they might be able to keep him. And they might not have to go to 12 because they can go for 8 years too.
Like
so
10 though.
8.5. I don't know. I'm not sure. It depends a little bit on Bishop, Matt. I think that also does play into it, but depends on where their mindset is with Bishop, right? Because if they have to pay Bishop's going to be a $6-7 million goalie.
The statement that Yzerman made yesterday, it was in a column by Joe Smith in the Tampa Bay Times, and he basically said, I can't wait around forever. I've got RFAs that need to be signed. I need a resolution to this situation pretty quickly. They've got Kucherov that they need to lock up. They, guys like Nemestikov and Killorn and Palat and Johnson over the next 2 years. I mean, he really can't wait till the 11th hour. They've got other business.
He really can't. See, he's just saying that. He really can wait till the 11th hour because there's no speed in this situation. It's been going on all year, and he knew it was going to end up like this. Like, he knew it would come to this. Everybody knew it would come down.
This is a case of, nothing gets done until it absolutely has to get done type situation, and it will get done, and either he will trade his rights, which he can do very easily, or he will sign him. It's going to come down to both of those things. Both those things are like a 10-minute conversation, right? Because he knows how much it's going to cost. He knows how much. He knows who wants his rights. So it's really not and what these guys are talking about. It's not like he's got UFAs he's got to deal with. That's the difference. Like, he's got RFAs he's got to deal with.
RFAs are not hard to deal with.
They're a different kind of ballback. So he can get the RFAs. It's not like the RFAs he has are going to necessarily be, offer sheeted. They could be after July 1st, but
nobody's getting offer sheeted. Not with the cap down. No way.
Not those kind of players. And I mean, a lot of players are going to have to take a lot less. I mean, there's a reason, just for a second, like touching on Winnipeg and Hutchinson signing a deal yesterday, a $1.5 million per year deal. That's the first deal I think that you're seeing of like, okay, this is like, that's seriously like Hutchinson knows that there's a glut of goalies out there, and he's got to get his spot type deal.
And the situation in Winnipeg, you've got Pavlik, who's a UFA at the end of the year. They've got their future goaltender in Hellebuck. Yeah. They may try to trade Pavlik because they're going to protect Hellebuck.
They would try to trade him.
Well, yeah, I mean, but this is it could be a very flooded goaltending market. I mean, Fleury's going to be out there, Bishop may be out there, and any
most
team.
Most of these goalies will be going back to their regular teams. That's the reality. One goalie will go to Calgary. Maybe one other goalie will go to another team we're not thinking of, and then that's probably it.
Yeah, and I heard somebody asked me a question on Twitter about trading, holding on to Jonathan Bernier to get better value at the trade deadline. With all the goalies that are out there, you're actually probably going to get less value at the trade deadline because everybody's facing expansion. So if they're going to trade them now.
Yeah, really good. Also, before we get into just the prospect of the day, I know we're running a little bit long, but there's a lot going on, obviously. Before we get into the prospect, I do want to mention Vinny Lecavalier retiring. I mean, that's all this Tampa news is going on. This is like, I'm really happy for Vinny for what happened last year, the way it went down. Like, he got his shot. He got to play a regular shift again in the playoffs for LA. This Philadelphia situation was such a mess for him. and never should have happened at all. There's so much about LeCavier's story, and I've written so much about LeCavier over the years. It's like a sad moment, because we've talked about LeCavier so much. Like his rumors, the rumors about Vinny LeCavier over the years were crazy. The Montreal thing in that draft, I swear to you, and time will tell what happened there. But that and other people have reported as well. But that was so close to getting done. I've heard that Vinny was going to go to Montreal at that draft. Remember leading up to that draft? Remember Vinny at the All-Star game in Montreal, and all the people saying, all the people there chanting, come to Montreal, and it was so close, that whole thing. And then, according to what I heard, the NHL nixed that deal at the draft. That they wouldn't let whatever deal the Lightning were trying to do to move LeCavier. So Vinny's still making money until 2016. He's still making like $101.65 million a year for doing nothing. So that's not bad. Not a bad deal there.
I give this guy credit. I watched him, go through all this too, and it hit me one night. He was in the press box one night with like this checkered suit, like he's just there, dressed to the nines. He's got his kid with him, and I'm thinking, that's pretty good way to handle this, because a lot of other guys could have just been like out of sight, out of mind. I don't want to be seen. I'm really annoyed with this, and he never acted that way at all, and I give him a lot of credit.
No, and remember, he came to Philadelphia to play with Peter Laviolette, and he played 4 games with Peter Laviolette. Yeah. And that was why it was such a mess. I mean, no one thought Laviolette would be gone after 4 games into that season. So that was he was just always classy. My memory of one, I remember, I think it was you were sitting there next to me, Russ, when we were in between periods up in the press box, and I remember LeCavier and Marty Brodeur having a long discussion in French. And I walked right by the soda machine. I went over and grabbed a soda, and I was, I speak very little French, but I speak enough to kind of listen to it to understand what's going on. And it was definitely, but even you didn't have to speak French to know what they were talking about. That Vinny was just saying, man, this is tough, and I wish there was another way of doing this. This sucks to be here at this point in my career. And Brodeur really, you could tell, was completely empathetic with him about what was going on.
Talking about what's better, the root beer or the Pepsi. I thought that's what I heard.
There's no question on that one. But yes, they were going down. It was really interesting. But the way he handled it in Philly, for as crazy as it was, he handled it very well. And then to see him get a shot, and legitimate shot, the Kings gave him a legitimate shot. Like they put him on second, third line duty. He scored some big goals for the Kings. He was a good player for them. And to go out like that is pretty great. They get a chance to go out, because I did not want to see. I mean, this guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer in my mind, and he's going to be there. So you don't want to see him go down. The way it was happening in Philly. So, and now of course, part of getting traded out of Philly was agreeing to retire, right? So basically, he's got to retire now, even though I think he could still play on some teams in the NHL. So, but he's going to retire, and it's probably the best. He had a great run.
It's best if he retires.
Yeah,
I think so too. At this point, it's definitely true. So, who is our prospect du jour, Russ?
Our prospect of the day, Charlie McAvoy. He is a Long Island defenseman, so a lot of people like me from Long Island always take some pride in it, but.
Right.
Dan will say the Long Island guys get overhyped. I disagree, but it's okay. He's a guy that's that's a BU guy, so he'll do great things there. He's 6'1", 211. He's already got a pro body. The interesting thing is, when everybody talks about all the great defensemen in this draft, he gets mentioned the least. And I think he gets mentioned the least because he was the hardest to cover. Like, you couldn't just, he's not playing in juniors. You had to really get out there and cover him, and so I think that's a part of it. I think the fact that he's not an elite offensive defenseman is a part of it. But the thing is, you need guys like Charlie McAvoy, who is a shot blocker, moves the puck great, sees the ice well. He still has a really good wrist shot, still can score on the power play, but really can make great plays with defenders on him, offensively and defensively. And I'll tell you, he is a guy that does a lot of the little things, and you need those guys on your team now. So basically, I would tell you he's like a 2 or a 4 at the NHL level. And we always think about, well, if he's not a 1 or a 3, if he's not a top power play guy or the second power play guy, then why is it worth it? But if you really think about it, these days you have to have the right pairings, especially if you're going to play that Penguin style of offense where one defenseman's barely not going to play any defense at all. Somebody has to stay back for some of that time. He could do that, and then he could still kick an offense too. And I think that's really the good thing about him. But I just think, again, he's had great time with USA Hockey. He's been really good with them. an NTDB TP guy. I really like him, but I just don't think he gets talked about enough.
Yeah, and Russ, he's going to be in that mix. I mean, there seem to be two levels in the first round in terms of defensemen. We talked about it. Ulevi, Sergachev, and Chychrun are the first level. They're probably all going to go in the top 10. It seems to be Fabro, Bean, and McAvoy, probably anywhere between 11 and 20. I mean, I think he's going to be a mid-first round pick, and I agree with what your analysis of him is. I think he's going to be a solid two-way guy. You know, I don't know about a top pairing guy. You never know, but he's already had 1 year at BU where he's impressed, and I think that, you know, people see that skill set and see that hockey IQ that he has, and they definitely see some upside potential. I mean, he's probably going to stay in college for another year or two, but he's got the ability to step right into the NHL after that. So I think he ends up going middle of the first round, and there has been talk about Boston taking him. So, and that would be perfect for them because, you know, he's from Boston.
You know, there's one more thing with this, and I just don't understand it. Maybe it's just weird in my mind, but like there seems to be a lot of like volleying around, like, for whatever reason, when I first started coming out with rankings, I had Laine as my second guy, and I didn't move off it. I understand why people wanted Puljujarvi in that spot, and then eventually he moved out of it. And it seemed like I was pretty early on having Ulevi as the top-ranked guy, and it just seemed like it took a long time for a lot of the other consensus to come around. I'm not saying there may be something that I'm lacking, and I'm not looking at the other guys enough, but now I'm starting to see that, but I still don't see it for McAvoy where he's like possibly getting mentioned ahead of some of the other guys. Like at the end of the day, I think the only reason someone's taking Jacob Chychrun over McAvoy is because you see the kind of shape and body he's in, and you're like, all right, you know what? There might be a little bit more upside there. Otherwise, I probably would take McAvoy, but I still have Chychrun, you know, ranked a little higher too.
And you know what? Chychrun was ranked in the top 5 at the beginning of the year, and it's easier. It may be easier to sell to your fan base if you pick somebody like Chychrun at 8 or 9. You could say, well, he was one of the top 2 or 3 players in the league.
Right.
And you were lucky to get him at 8 or 9 than taking a guy who was ranked in the high 20s or in the teens and taking him at 9 or 10.
I mean, quite often guys do fall because other guys just rise, and it's not like it's not their necessarily his fault for falling. You know, that other people become the flavor du jour, or they have a really good tournament, or they play really well, and we've seen this all happen. But I mean, what is it about Long Island, Russ, that why do you think the players don't get the attention out there?
I just think because it's only been, you know, in the last 10 years or so that it's become a spot. You know, we hear about a few players, and then oh crap, Mike, who was the Toronto defenseman?
Mike Komisarek.
Komisarek was one of the first really big names to get drafted high and come out of there, and then, you know, and then it tailed off a little bit, although
Pacioretty, Chris Higgins.
No, Higgins and those guys, but I was actually thinking of the former Penguins and Kings defenseman. He's actually from Long Island too, and nobody ever talked about him. Defensive defenseman.
Scuderi? Scuderi?
Scuderi. He's also from there, and so I think it became that, and then now we're starting to see another wave of guys, and I don't know what it is fully. I think if you live there, you tend to overrate guys a little bit, but I just think they've become a good enough hotbed where we're going to start to see big names from there, and guys start to do really well. We'll see how that works out, but there have been some good names, but no real like superstars yet, so we'll see.
Right, interesting. What do we have socially on this kid?
He has. If you're interested in following him on Twitter, he's at I keep calling him the wrong last name, but McAvoy. So C McAvoy, his first initial and last name, and then the number 44. And Instagram, it's the same thing except it's 25 instead of 44. He's got about 2,000 Twitter followers and about 1,700 Instagram followers. He's not super active, though. I would point out that he appears to be a Giants fan for NFL.
Right.
So if he goes to Boston, it's okay. They're not in the same conference. So, and I had one favorite Instagram picture. It's him. He's in his USA jersey, and it appears he's mid-check, like he's checking a Canadian player. I can't see the name on the jersey, but it says live look at social science tomorrow, humanities Wednesday, thoughts and prayers appreciated, #student athlete, #finals week. And I just thought it was silly. I thought it,
cool.
And so, but again, he's probably very busy. He is going to school, and he's very. Anytime I see anything that he's tweeting out, it's about the team he's playing on, whether it's the USA or with Boston. So he's very active outside of social media, but he does tune in every now and then, and when he does, it seems to be pretty. He has a pretty good sense of humor.
Yeah, the one other name that really could set the Long Island thing going in a big way would be Sonny Milano, and so he's the guy I'm really watching. He's the really one that could get pretty big.
Well, interesting final note for Long Island hockey, Russ. Jeremy Bracco was invited as among 42 players to the U.S. World Junior Camp for the summer. He wasn't invited last year, and we think the reason why. It was good old Ron Wilson and his third and fourth line BS. But I think this time, as a 19-year-old and somebody who scored over 60 points in the OHL last year, Bracco will make that team. Yeah,
Bracco's from Freeport. He's a good kid. He does have that kind of skill. He did make Austin Matthews better, and I'm sure Matthews wasn't happy that he wasn't around. We all bitched about it. At least they're learning from that mistake, so that's good.
It's funny. I talked to somebody yesterday about this, and there's a big push among USA Hockey. I don't think this has gotten out yet. Maybe if it has, it's just has not been talked about. This whole World Cup of Hockey, the way it's working now, people are saying, okay, it's great with this under-24 team or under-23 team or whatever you want to call it, but obviously the best USA centers are on that team, and so they're sitting back and saying, shouldn't it be the case that we have that we have the first choice, and if they don't make Team USA or Team Canada, then they could be on the under-23 team, but give them a chance to at least to make their country's team, because Team USA is getting a little
a team North America and then a Team Canada and Team USA. That seems a bit ridiculous too, but whatever.
That sounds to me like Team USA and Team Canada is really worried that Team North America is going to be too damn good.
And I think they are. I absolutely think that's the case, and I think if that happens, then
I was saying that all along. Like, it doesn't make sense. Here's the thing. Now it sounds like it's like, well, USA Hockey and Team Canada have gotten together, and it's like, we'll give you the leftovers for your under-23 team.
Right.
That's what they want to do.
If you're going to do an under-23 team, the question is, why are you doing it? That's what they're saying, and they're saying
larger pool, and you don't have it, so that's the problem.
Right, but the idea here is if one of those kids is like,
it's not right.
Right. No, it's interesting. I'm not surprised, and I mean, Team USA definitely feels like they're getting screwed. It could be Team Canada the same way, Connor McDavid.
I say good. I think that's the team. I'm going to be honest. I'm really going to be honest. Based on the roster and the coach for Team USA and a lot of things, I think a lot of fans are going to be rooting for that team more than they're going to be rooting for Team USA.
I'll tell you right now, at the Air Canada Center, that the Leaf fans, who if there are Leaf fans in that building, which there'll be a lot of them, will be rooting for Team North America, because I don't think there are any Leaf players on Team Canada, and Morgan Riley and Austin Matthews are going to be on the 23 or 24 and under team. So that's going to be their team to root for.
And here's my thing. It's confusing to a casual fan why there's a Team Canada, Team North America, and Team USA. That's very confusing, and you're like, why are you doing that? And I get why they are, but it's really weird and confusing.
Agreed.
Yeah, that to me is going to be a problem if people aren't rooting for Team Canada.
It takes away from the part we were talking earlier, being nationalistic, because now you can't be like, yeah, America, and kind of Canada too. Like, that doesn't work out so well.
Team Canada can't bitch that much. They still have guys like Matt Duchene, and Team USA, still has Patrick Kane. I mean, it's like, there's not a lot to bitch at. I just think they can't go 4 lines strong like they would be able to, and that's tough.
I mean, how confusing will it be? Now, I don't know what the division setup is, so Team North America might be in the same division as Canada, so this may not be possible. But if it ends up for the final being Team Canada versus Team North America, and you have the Canadian fans rooting against Connor McDavid, rooting against Canadian players.
Yeah, because
will that turn this into more of like an all-star game feel versus an actual competition? Like, that's my one fear about it. Will this have like an all-star game feel to it? Versus, where there was no question when Team Canada's all, the best players in Canada are playing for Canada, the best players in the U.S. are playing for the U.S. That's the bottom line. I do think my theory is this under-23 thing will go away. But I think they're going to take the team away because they're going to have to. But if it's successful, yeah,
you know what? If they win it all, they can't make it go away. That's the funny thing.
That's a very good point, Russ.
Yeah, if they win it all, then if they win it all, then and they don't make it go away, that this tournament will never be able to replace the Olympics. So that's the problem. Is
never replace the Olympics. That's the first thing. Never will replace the Olympics.
No, but it could. The Canada Cup was pretty good in its day. Like the Canada Cup had its, it was very competitive and very.
Who sanctioned that one? Not the NHL, the International Ice Hockey Federation. So.
Right. That's why this whole there's definitely.
I'm excited for the World Cup of Hockey. I think it could be a lot of fun.
I'm going to be there. I'm going to cover it. I know.
With it.
I also think the strong hate for Russia helped those tournaments back in the day.
Did.
That doesn't exist anymore. So that's it. That it all has changed in that regard too.
Even remember the last one, which was like where the U.S. and Canada had that epic battle in the last World Cup we saw, which was like really a great game, and I think it took place in Philadelphia, even or somewhere like.
No, I think it was Montreal. Now you're talking about '96.
It was Montreal.
Yep. That was that was U.S. That was when all those USA players were really good, and they were all their prime.
You had Chelios. You had a great team, Madonna.
Yeah, Kachuk and Guerin and Roenick and all those guys, Leclerc. They were all at their top of their game. And that was a great Team USA, and then there was a big problem with, but now, like you said, Team USA can't complain. They've got Patrick Kane, they've got Phil Kessel. Oh wait, they don't have Phil Kessel because why? Still baffling. Sorry, I'm not a huge Kessel fan, but it's just that to me is just insane. But
it is insane. I mean, it doesn't. But there still could be injuries,
especially when you bring in this U23 team. And so, if that team beats your ass, and then you didn't even have Phil Kessel in there, you couldn't score goals against them. What the hell?
Could be interesting.
It'll definitely be that. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.